Welcome to the Future of Ground Transportation podcast, where we discuss the exciting innovations that lie ahead for organizational ground transportation. Each episode, we cover topics tailored to those resolving transportation-related challenges and provide tips, tools, and trends that will inspire you to stay ahead of the curve. And now, here's your host, Daniel Perez.
Welcome to the Future of Ground Transportation. Today we have a special guest, Joshua Fiss, CEO and co-founder of Cogito. He has an MBA from MIT, has a ton of experience around artificial intelligence, super agents, when we talk about transportation and how AI has a critical role in transportation. So it's going to be an excited episode. Josh, thank you for jumping on the episode today.
Daniel, it's a real pleasure. Thanks for inviting me.
So the pleasure is ours. So tell us a little bit about Cogito, how you guys started.
Yeah, of course. So the system at its core is an AI that can listen to conversations between humans and then understand how they're going from a perspective of a customer or an agent. And then because we know how well the conversations are going, we're able to guide agents in the moment while they're speaking to get a better outcome. So if you use a transportation metaphor, it's like you're in a conversation with somebody and you're getting a lane departure warning or GPS navigation to help you get through that human conversation successfully. One of the things that's kind of fun about this type of application is it's an AI training humans as opposed to humans training an AI. Or in other words, it's an AI helping humans be more human because we're helping people more successfully interact with each other.
That's awesome. But how did you get started? Walk us from the beginning. We could dive deeper as we go along. How did you get started?
Yeah, originally we were 10 years of basic science at MIT looking at how you can train a computer to read human behavior in its first psychological state. And then at the end of the basic science period, I was studying at MIT. I was excited about the research. I started the company with the professor who did the original research and then my other co-founder who's our CTO, and we still work together. The first thing we did with the company is we took the basic science and then we had to build an applied technology. So we were funded by DARPA, which is the high-tech funding arm of the Department of Defense, National Institutes of Health. And the reason they funded us to the tune of quite a lot of money is because there was a concern about understanding distress and returning soldiers. And so that was one of the very first things we worked in, and we were very successful at doing it. And then we started commercializing once the technology was built. And then what we did is we started helping nurses on the phone understand depression and PTSD when they spoke to patients with chronic disease. And the reason why that's important is because if you have a major chronic disease you're trying to manage, and then you also have some distress or depression, you're not going to be able to look after yourself as well. So you want to kind of identify that and deal with it so people can get better. And then our customers on the healthcare side said, well, if you can do this, why can't you help people be more charming? And so we did. We said, okay, we can do that. And so then they said, why don't you work in our big member services, phone lines and call centers? And we said, we can do that. And we did it. And then Salesforce came along and said they'll invest. And then Goldman Sachs came along and said they'll invest. And then now we serve very large brands, 5 of the Fortune 25 across tech, telco, hospitality, transportation, financial services, healthcare, of course, insurance, et cetera, et cetera.
That's awesome. Thank you for the context. So walk me back when you mentioned returning soldiers, like what sort of AI and what sort of tools were you guys sort of developing behind?
Yeah, so one of the most important was understanding the signals in voice. So when you, for example, if you take depression as an example, there's a particular speech pattern that can be one of the symptoms. It's very sort of flat and monotonic and whispery. And so if you see that somebody's kind of moving and their speech patterns are tending in that direction, that's a signal that there could be something going on. There could be some concern. And then you can ask them about it, and if they feel they've had other symptoms, then you could refer them for a diagnosis. So that's an example. So we ran on phone calls, and we also had a mobile app. We discontinued that now, but the mobile app basically allowed you to leave voice diaries, and it would give you an analysis of risk factors or identification of symptoms. It also measured some other sort of social signals like degrees of socialization and whether you're getting out of the house and other types of things that are important for understanding that type of thing. And the idea was that you really wanted to have this very broad risk assessor for vulnerable populations. So the concept was, and was very successful, was that rural veterans would have access to this technology. They may not naturally come forward if they're distressed. This would help identify risk, and then there can be a clinician that reaches out and sees if there's any assistance that can be offered.
Got it. Thank you. What about with the nurses? What were you doing with nurses?
Yeah, so that we started working on nurse phone lines. So if you have a major chronic disease in the United States, you'll often be assigned a nurse or case coordinator, and they will check up on you periodically. They'll help you with medication. They'll help you navigate the healthcare system. And the concept was initially that these nurses, part of their role is they're trying to try and figure out if there's anything else going on, and the system was going to assist them in identifying, that there could be some risks with some of the people they're speaking to, and then they can inquire further. But as we said, what we discovered, it was actually more valuable and to actually help the nurses be engaging. So helping them with their phone side manner, and networks turned out to be a more kind of a broader application. So that's how we got really into the kind of almost like customer service, finding how do you help people be charming, from that sort of insight. Yeah.
When it comes to the customer service perspective and hospitality, as you know, we have a lot of listeners that are operating transportation companies
Mhm.
and trucking companies that obviously customer service is a major component.
Yeah.
How is AI and the super agents technology that you guys are developing having an efficiency and improvements to customer service?
Yeah, absolutely. So so there's two sort of fundamentally large areas of progress with AI and customer service writ large. So one area is self-service. So that could be websites or mobile apps or IVR or sort of automated chatbots, basically self-service tools. That's one category. The other category is enhancing the human experience, and that's where my company works in. And you framed it, I think, perfectly. This is really about creating these super agents. And so what does that mean? So one of the challenges is that if you're working with some sort of scale, you've got often quite large teams. There can be turnover in those teams. It's not so simple to kind of create a consistent experience that's high quality. And a lot of customers, the service experience is a key of our customers. Service experience is a key part of their competitive differentiation. They also have high lifetime value of their customers. These are often moments of truth. So, long story short, it really matters that these conversations are really good, right? It has a huge business impact. One of the other challenges, though, it's also really expensive, right? Like often fielding like large teams of humans to answer customer interactions can be a large part of the operating expenses of some companies. So that's the flip side of it. And so the way that what Cogito is doing in this is sort of twofold. So the first is we're deploying real-time guidance to ensure consistent behaviors when people are interacting with your customers. So even if somebody's a newbie or they're more experienced or they're having maybe it's the end of the day after 30 calls, or they're going to get a nice consistent experience because the AI is there, it's listening, it's providing that lane departure warning so that people stay in the lane and that things are going to the calls are going to go well. It's going to be compliant with any regulations, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. The tool is also going to help manage a very large team. So it does automatic coaching plans and continuous measures of how customer experience is going on every and during every interaction. It has a QA function and all these other things that you need to kind of effectively manage a pretty big team. And so that's a lot of what the tool is going to do. The last thing I'll say is that it will both help you understand the experience of your customers. It'll also help you understand the experience of your agents. So one of the things we know is that if an agent has multiple bad interactions because of angry, frustrated customers, then the next customer that calls in isn't going to have a great experience with their agent. So you can kind of understand that, maybe give somebody a quick rest, because that can happen, unfortunately. Life sometimes happens and not everybody's nice. And so you kind of want to be able to help with that as well.
So Josh, thank you for the context. So if I'm an agent working for American Airlines, let's just say, which I think they're one
Hmm.
of their clients, if I'm not mistaken, one of the airlines. Let's just say that I work for an airline, and there's a ton of demands for calls. And once the agent picks up the phone, am I gonna see sort of a widget from your company that is monitoring
That's
the
right.
quality of the call?
That's exactly right. Yes. So if you're an agent, you're sitting there, the phone comes in, you've got a screen or multiple screens in front of you. You've got either a Cogito widget on the screen where you're going to see little like visual icons and like little bits of text basically nudge you to change your behavior. Or sometimes they're just slide-ins, or they could be embedded inside a CRM system and they just kind of come. So think of like sort of like system notifications or pop-ups. They're going to have like a little, they're like a little coffee cup and a thing that says, if you want to lift somebody's energy. So they're kind of designed that you can see them out of the corner of your eye. You can quickly change your behavior. And then the nudges and things that come up can also be interactive. So, some of them might be, for example, read this compliance statement. You click on it and the compliance statement comes up, or they'll perform an action for you as well. So you can, have things happen as a result if you choose as a result. So systems really what we're trying to get to. Like if I think about what does good look like? We're not there today, but where do we want to get to? We want to get to the situation where the agent can just have a call with the customer and having a chat, and the system's just magically doing everything for them. Right? It's just all just running. It's all just doing everything. The agent can just really focus on the customer and have a really great experience, and that all the orchestration and everything of all the work is being done by the AI. But to do that, you have to understand what's going on, which is where our company comes in.
So that's what you guys currently doing, just pretty much capturing all this data and all this
Mm-hmm.
workflows pretty much that the agent is doing to expedite the whole process is what I'm hearing.
Exactly, exactly. And so the effect of that, like the business effect of that, is obviously shorter interactions, which means, that's obviously means shorter, lower costs, higher experience scores, and then often higher kind of better business objectives. So a lot of our customers have cross-sell, upsell KPIs. So those will often go up because you're pitching more often, because you're getting nudges, and that really works for lifting some of those things as well.
And does the widget ask you or will prompt the agent said, hey, your tone of voice is too low, you might want to raise it?
Absolutely. Yep.
Upselling the client, you haven't upsell the client just yet, and it will recommend
Exactly.
upsell that a specific product.
100%. Yep. Yep. So it's going to cue you to change how you're coming across. It's going to cue you on different kind of workflow steps that you need to take. It'll also help you detect some things from on the part of the customer. So, for example, distress. And you might say, well, I'm a human, I can detect distress, but the fact is, after 30 calls, when you're super tired, you're going to miss that, right? And so like, you don't want to miss that opportunity. Or like somebody calls in and they're like, I just got married, and you want to say, great. You don't want to like go, oh, okay, and let's just go into the next step in the workflow. You want to say, congratulations. Like that's going to really matter. It's going to really matter to make that personal connection. What we say at Cogito is that, well, we want to achieve two outcomes, right? The first is we want to help our agents and clients execute flawless workflows, right? That's baseline, flawless workflows. But we also want to strengthen relationships. And customers make decisions about whether they've been well served by the way they're spoken to. And it is what it is. It just is what it is. And the question is, but how do you scale great experiences, right? And that's hopefully what we're helping our clients achieve.
Got it. And is it going to be focusing on a specific industry, Josh, or is it a multiple industries? Where are your main sort of specialties, let's just say?
Yeah, so it is a cross-industry application because customer service in general has a lot of similar properties between organizations, except the workflows are different, and obviously the system is capable of handling lots of different types of complex workflows across different industries. Our main industries are tech, telco, financial services, hospitality, transportation, financial services, and insurance. I
Got
think
it.
I said healthcare. Did I say healthcare? Also healthcare. That's where we started. That's where we started.
And so you talk about self-service a little bit. So you guys don't focus on the self-service, is more on the enhancing the human experience.
Correct. Yeah. So if a client wants to do self-service and super agent, then we partner typically, and we bring in another specialized vendor to do the self-service component. Yes.
Got it.
Yeah.
And when it comes to enhancing the human experience, what sort of other challenges are you guys currently facing as you guys continue to innovate in that industry? Like, what are the main challenges you guys are facing?
Um, That's a good question. I mean, I think one of the things that was interesting, we saw this a little bit last year, is you helping people understand what AI can do and what AI can't do. Like, so, on one hand, right now, there's so much more awareness of AI, right? There's just everyone's so, and that's wonderful. Users, so agents on the phone, are really excited to use these applications because they all understand that their future employment is predicated on their ability to partner successfully with AI, right? Like everybody's kind of got the message, right? So that's fantastic. But also we have to temper that because expectations of what AI can do can also be, and they expect, sometimes people will expect it to do things it can't do yet, right? We might get there, but just kind of like that's there's always a double-edged sword in this. So we're always like, yes, it's cool. Yes, it can do lots of things. We're not yet at the point where it can do everything all automatically. And so that's kind of a part of it. So you want to say, yes, you should be excited, yes, you should work with me, but like it's not going to be, there's still a distance to go for full Nirvana.
Still evolving is what I'm hearing.
Of course it is. Yep, of
Got it.
course it is.
And when it comes to AI, because it's so broad as well, what do you see in the next 3 to 5 years, especially on the customer service side? Are we still gonna need agents, or
Correct.
will you still see agents being useful, or is it just gonna be more of an AI machine replicating the voice of a human and actually being wiser, smarter, faster, more easy?
No, well, it's a very important question. And if we're talking a 3 to 5 year time frame, there's going to be the same or larger amounts of agents out there. That's the headline prediction. Why do I say that? Why do I say that? Right. So right now, the AI has two parts. So it's improving self-service, and it needs to, and that's good. A lot of that though is kind of, for want of a better word, cannibalizing other types of self-service applications. So you've gone from mail order to website to mobile app to IVRs to chat, and they're all self-service, right? And they all interact, and they may increase the frequency of interactions, but they don't yet um, deal with the issue of a complex call, right? And a complex interaction. And so, the reason is the following: they don't yet have a real model of the world. They're statistical, and then the underlying systems aren't necessarily well integrated, so they can only do simple tasks. At the end of the day, for self service to get good, it has to not only be able to interact in a way that feels, you know, good, but also has to be able to actually do something useful for you, which is all about systems integration, which is slow. Right? So self service is actually limited in the speed at which it can take on complex workflows. On the other hand, like when people want to interact with a company, they want self-service tools. Sometimes they want things to be done quiet. They want to do it at their own time. They want to do it in the middle of the night, whatever it is they want to do. The other times is they want to take the monkey off their back. Right? They want to say, you know what, I want somebody else to solve my problem for me. Right? I'm paying this company. I want to call somebody and have them deal with it, right? Whatever the thing is, right? And I also don't trust that, some computer is going to be able to deal with it. I need somebody who understands the human experience. And so then they're going to want to call. Also, as people get wealthier, so the world is getting wealthier, people want more service on their self-service. So there's all these kind of counterbalancing forces, this kind of rise of self-service getting better and better. There's also a rising demand for service as well, because people are getting wealthier, companies are getting bigger, there's growth in the economy. So my prediction for 3 to 4 years is that the number of agents in the world will go up with GDP like it has for the last 30. Right now, forward it to 20 years in the future, 40 years in the future, 50 years in the future, the answer is I don't know, because it's always possible there'll be some further significant advance in AI. But based on current AI technologies, we still need major advances before you can get to something that's truly replacing a human understanding.
Got it. Thank you, Josh. Is it fair to assume that the AI is still operating at a slower pace, sort of digesting all the information to resolve that complex call or situation or emergency, whatever the demand is, where it still needs the agent interaction instead of just a machine responding? Is that pretty much part of the challenge there?
I think it's a model of the world. So at the end of the day, like an AI doesn't actually know what it is to be a human, and so that really comes through, right? And actually, so it's worth saying, like, where can you go wrong in customer service AI? Today, the mistake you can make as a company is you can deploy things and pretend that they're humans, and then your customers are going to get really annoyed at you because they're going to know the difference. Right? So deploy AI in self-service context, do it, but just be clear what you're doing, right? And the other thing I would say is don't put a self-service AI, if you want to use it to contain costs, only do it to the extent that the customer doesn't feel like it's a bait and switch. So because they can be a bit offended if they're like, well, I know that I need to talk to a human, and you keep putting a damn AI in front of me. Like that can frustrate people, and there's been a bunch of surveys about that have come out recently. So that's just something to be aware of. It doesn't mean that people don't understand that if you're going to, for example, call in, you might want an IVR system to gather some information to get them to the right place. Like people totally understand and are okay with that. But this taking it too far when people really do know the difference is a risk. It's a risk. It's a risk. So, but what needs to happen? AIs have to have a true model of the world, and that's still some distance away.
When it comes to self-service, is it what mainly chat boxes? Is it mobile apps? Like, what are the most sort of innovative self-service?
Innovative things. In self-service, most of what people are doing is saying we can provide a better conversational interface than we were able to provide before. So people were providing conversational interfaces, so something that answered questions or could understand natural language and give responses, but they can do it more efficiently and it can sound better than it did. So it kind of feels like it's higher quality. The challenge, of course, is that it's not enough just to interact successfully. You have to be able to do work, right? And that's where the systems integration challenge comes in, which is not really solved by AI, which is again why some of the implementations can be less successful than people hope.
Got it. So that's where this is where it's hard to pronounce for me the name Kajito
Oh, yeah, Cogito. Yeah, exactly. Cogito Corporation. Yeah.
and works with this Fortune 1000 companies to not only understand the complexity of the customer service items that you guys want to address, but also the integrations with all these different softwares that listen.
100%. 100%.
Got
It's a
it.
very big part of the challenge.
Got it. Thank you, Josh. And when it comes to machine learning, is that very similar to what you guys are doing on the AI side, or is just this is a whole different sort of sector?
Yeah, good question. Yeah, so AI as a sort of umbrella term has a number of technologies in it. So AI, the term AI can incorporate, really kind of like engineered statistical models. It can incorporate what's called machine learning or deep learning, where you basically create a bunch of outcomes, you get a bunch of data, and you kind of train the system to predict the outcomes. So it's called predictive AI. And then you've got these recent advances where you basically create this big general model called a large language model, and within that, you can then basically ask it to summarize data for you. There's kind of so-called Gen AI. One of the biggest applications for it is summarize the data. Here's a big document, or here's a go tell me, describe that for me in 3 sentences, right? And it will be able to write it back to you because it's got this great knowledge of language. It'll be able to write it back to you in a way that's very human readable. So all these tools, these engineered models, these kind of predictive AI, these large language models, they all have their place. It's not like each of them is supersedes the one in the past. They all have a specific thing they're really good at. What Cogito does is it deploys all the different strategies to depending on what the particular feature is of the product that you want. So we'll summarize transcripts with Gen AI. We'll predictively tell you scoring on a particular call. We've got particular engineered features that give you, very reliable measures of those late departure warnings that we talked about, for example. And the trick to AI is knowing what tool to use for the job. And the mistake you can make in AI is thinking one of the tools does everything. That's when you fall over.
Totally, totally. When it comes to predictive AI, Josh, how do you I know in the past we talked about this briefly, where there's so many small enterprise companies that probably don't have the same access to Fortune 1000 companies to create sort of this machine learning or predicted AI models for specific sectors. So let's just say in our business, we we build clients on a daily basis, and I always ask myself, how do I create a predictive AI to create invoices on a daily basis that is reading our fares and creating those invoices based on the mechanisms that we already have established. So I'm curious to see what comes to your mind for companies that are billing on a daily basis, or they have a pattern or repetitions of, among their businesses that they could automate with
Mhm.
AI mechanisms.
Yeah, it's a really good question. So, like, so let's just to make sure I'm clear on the use case. So here you've got a business process, you've got a bunch of data, you've got a lot of invoices going out. It's a lot of work. You want this thing to be automated or semi-automated with maybe some human manual checks. Yeah, no, I mean it's tricky for smaller businesses that don't have maybe very established IT or AI teams. In this use case, they may have them. I don't know, but I would say first of all, I would go to your existing technical resources because you want to basically just make a buy build decision, right? You want to do an analysis of the market and say, are there any vendors out there that offer a tool that can do this or can be adapted to do this? And if it doesn't exist, then you're like, well, okay, then I have to, you know, identify a group that can come and help me do it. But also maybe there's a business opportunity because maybe you've got a gap in the market. Right? So like, there's always, depending on how entrepreneurial you feel, both are possible answers. But it's really a buy build. I think like you don't have to default immediately to AI experts. Like really good software people are probably the place to go because what you're going to be doing is a really good software person will build the solution for you and they'll incorporate AI from third parties if they need to do it, right? Because a lot of this is just accessible. These technologies are accessible, and a lot of the challenges in integrating them. Like I don't think like many companies looking for a use case, they want to invent a new type of AI to do it. I don't think that's the point. The point is to implement the AI that's already out there. And generally software people have the right product experience and kind of integration experience to pull that off.
Very well said. And Judge, what is your top favorite books? That What's your
Yeah.
go-to book? One or two.
Well, I'll talk about two business books. I'll give you two business books. One is a classic Good to Great by Jim Collins, which I really love because it's about, I think at the heart of it, the persistency and also the focus required to do things well, which I think is important in this day and age. That's a well-known one. The second one, nobody will know at all, but I'm going to say it anyway. And that's a book called The Beer Mat Entrepreneur, as in, coaster, like a beer coaster, Beer Mat Entrepreneur. It's a small book that changed my life and was written by some random Australian entrepreneur. And I don't know, it's maybe 30 pages long, but it just boils everything down perfectly into how to do a company. That guy's a genius. I don't think I think you have to buy it secondhand on eBay, I think probably, but it's really, really cool.
And what is it called again?
BMAT, BEERBEERMAT, entrepreneur, BMAT entrepreneur. Beer coaster entrepreneur, I guess would be the translation. My accent's a bit tough to get it, I know, but
And when it comes to the best business advice that you haven't gotten, Josh, what comes to your mind?
um, well, I'll tell you a funny story. Like when I frame myself as a deliberate entrepreneur. So I set out to learn and to actually do this thing. Crazy, isn't it? I'm not accidental. Like I actually wanted to be an entrepreneur. So I went out and when I was, trying to build up the courage to do it and to get the experience, I went out and talked to a bunch of entrepreneurs. And I remember one, lunch with a really grizzled veteran, and I was like, oh, I'm like, young and wide-eyed, and like, what do I need to know? Like, what's the most important thing? And he said, you've got to know the difference between interest and intent. That was his big line. Interest and intent. Because when you're young or when you're not experienced, when somebody goes, yeah, that sounds great, your idea is awesome, right? But it doesn't mean they're going to buy your product, right? It doesn't mean anything like that. You got to like understand that the signals people do when they're like actually going to do something are much more serious, almost like a very different way of speaking to you when they're really serious than when they're just kind of being cheerleaders. And so I thought that was like it was an important piece of advice.
That's awesome. Perfect. All right. Well, there you have it, guys. Again, Josh, I want to be grateful and super for being generous with your time and sharing your wisdom. For all the listeners, please stay tuned for the next episode. And thank you for tuning in tonight. Thank you, Josh.
Thank you, Daniel. Thank you.
Hey, everyone. Thanks so much for tuning in today. We hope you enjoyed the episode and got some valuable insights. If you're curious to learn more, head over to the resource website at tpvtransportation.com, where we got a ton of useful resources and tools for you to stay ahead of the game. And before we wrap it up, I want to invite you to book a free guest admission consultation or a consultation about your ground transportation program with us. Just register on our website. Is a fantastic way to see how your fleet is doing or how your overall program could be improved. Thanks again for joining us, and we will catch you next time on the Future of Ground Transportation. Have a great day.
Thanks for tuning in to the Future of Ground Transportation. We appreciate you coming along for the ride. If you found value in this episode and want to hear more, please make sure to subscribe to the show.